what's going on, everybody? Merry Christmas, I guess. This is the worst of list. These are the movies I hated. These are the movies that I'll never watch again. Even if they're like, oh, but you've got to check it out for this reason. Like, I will never watch any of the movies on my top 10 worst of 2022 ever again. I'm going to need a lot of Pure Leaf tea to get me through this. Yeah, it's Christmas time. Merry fucking Christmas. I got to do this fucking list now. God damn it. I don't want to talk about these movies, but I'm doing it because I do it every year. There's a few things we got to go over, though, first. The first thing, of course, is that my list not going to match your list. The movies I didn't like, you probably liked a lot of them. Especially if you're those scumbags that like, oh, no, this movie, imitated life. No, there's biopics on here. There are horror movies on here. There are movies about life in general on here. I saw these movies because I thought, well, you know what? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe these movies will surprise me. No, they didn't. And you know what? There's a most anticipated movie on here, too. That's disappointing. How dare I? How dare I look into the future and think that movie's going to be great, and then it turns out that it's on my worst of list? Okay. Listen, I seem irritated, but I'm mostly doing that for the camera. This is Pure Leaf tea. If my list doesn't match your list, I don't give a shit. Put it down in the comment section down below. If you disagree with me about something that I say on this list, I don't care. I don't care. Okay, now that that's out of the way, Merry Christmas. Let's do the list of the worst movies from 2022. Oh, and I totally forgot to mention this when I was doing my rant earlier, but I have linked down below all of the reviews for all of the movies I'm about to talk about. I've done reviews for all of them, so if you want to see full thoughts on any of these reviews, all of them are linked below, and I would love for you guys to check those out. In this video, I'm just going to kind of sort of talk about them, say why I don't like them, and move on. But like I said, if you want full thoughts of why I don't like them, they're all linked below. All right, with that said, guys, on the best of list yesterday, you got honorable mentions. Today, you're going to get dishonorable mentions. Movies that were bad, but they weren't quite bad enough to be on the top 10 worst movies list. So here they are. The first one is Uncharted. Uncharted, starring Tom Holland as Nathan Drake. I just couldn't buy him as Nathan Drake. He just looked too young, and seeing him kill people, like, he really works as Spider-Man. Like, he really works for me as Spider-Man. But in these movies, it just didn't work as Nathan Drake. I just didn't buy it. On top of that, then you had Mark Wahlberg running around doing the Mark Wahlberg thing. Huh? What? We got to steal a statue from where? I'm Mark Wahlberg. I have a mustache now. I was supposed to play Nathan Drake many years ago, but I'm too old now. Like, I don't care. So it was just annoying. Let's move on. Next up, guys, we have The Gray Man. Now, The Gray Man looked great on paper. You've got a Netflix-released action movie, which is fine because I don't need to go to the movie theater to see something like this. Then you've got the fact that it's directed by the Russo brothers. I'm in. And then you've got Chris Evans and Ryan Gosling. I was like, okay, what could go wrong? Well, the movie's just lackluster. It's just boring throughout the movie. There's a couple action scenes that are okay. Like, the Russos can direct action, but going down to the very final action scene, we're supposed to be mano-y-mano, two men fighting each other to see who wins. And you know who's going to win. It's going to be the good guy, but who's going to win and how are they going to win? Well, one of them gets shot by another person off camera. That's how they had their final climax fight. That was annoying. Like, that, I don't know. And there's a pretty unbelievable airplane scene in that movie, too, that there was an unbelievable airplane scene in Uncharted. Okay. Well, dishonorable mention. Finally, guys, dishonorable mention here. It's a movie that was on my most anticipated list, and that is Halloween Ends. I understand some people have really turned the page on this and really like it now. They're comparing it to Season of the Witch, and they're like, no, this is why, and when you look at it this way, but I don't want to look at it a different way. Like, I just want to watch the movie for what it is and enjoy it. And I didn't really enjoy it. Now, the reason it didn't make my top 10 worst movies list was because my experience with the movie itself was good. Like, the movie itself wasn't good, but I had a bunch of friends and family over in my movie theater room, and we did a movie night where we all watched Halloween Ends, and that was actually enjoyable. So that's why I didn't put it on my worst of list, because I still had a good time. There's another movie that didn't make it to either of these lists, and that was Jurassic World Dominion. I really didn't like that movie, but to give you an idea, like, I saw that with my dad and my son, and it's the first movie I've seen with my dad and my son. We took a picture together. It was awesome. But my point is, like, I couldn't put that on the worst list. Like, the experience was great. The movie itself wasn't great, but the experience was great. So the experience really factors into a lot of this stuff. So Halloween Ends, back to that movie. The movie itself wasn't good, so it's a dishonorable mention. Michael Myers being a side pawn in a movie called Halloween just blows my mind. They had a good thing going, I thought, for both Halloween 2018 and Kills, and then this movie just in the wind. But my experience kept it off the top 10. Okay, I've kept you guys waiting long enough. Let's get into my top 10 worst movies from 2022. At number 10, guys, we have the movie Nope. Nope is a sci-fi horror movie directed by Jordan Peele, who has done great in the past. I really liked Us, and I really liked Get Out. I thought both of those movies were good. But Nope, just the whole movie, I felt like took itself too serious, and the scariest part in the entire movie for me turned out to be just like a prank done by some kids in a barn. The rest of the movie was just, I don't know, cloud alien. That's what I'll say without spoiling things. Cloud alien. Yeah. I don't know. I didn't find the enjoyment. And there's a scene in this movie with like a monkey where he does some crazy shit, and that might have been the best scene of the movie. And I'm kind of like, I would rather see a movie based around the monkey. Like, wouldn't it have been cool to film a whole movie based around this monkey, but get to that final scene where it just starts ripping arms off of people? That would have been cool. But instead we got Nope, which is a sci-fi alien movie that ultimately didn't matter. And the next day I was like, oh yeah, I saw Nope. I forgot I saw that, like the next day. So, number 10, Nope. At number 9, guys, is a music biopic, and I never enjoy these things. I went and saw it because I was like, well, Elvis can't be that bad, right? They just doctor it too much. It's what they do with every music biopic. It's the reason I don't have it higher on this list is because I kind of expected it to be like this, but like, Elvis didn't join the army because he wiggled his finger on TV. Like, he didn't do that. They took so many liberties, but of course they're going to. It's just like, we know going into a biopic for a musician that the family still owns a bunch of the rights, and so they're never going to let you show the real stuff. He also didn't even write that song when the assassination happened. He didn't write that song in a night. He didn't even write it at all. Like, he performed it, that's great, but like, there's certain things that Elvis didn't do that they threw into this movie to make him look better, and that always annoys me. And then there's one thing that put this movie 100% on my worst movies of 2022 list, and that is Tom Hanks' character. And the fact that they decided to show this horrible person's point of view the entire movie. Like, the story is told through Tom Hanks' character, and it turns out that he's a dirty scumbag the whole time. Like, the whole time he's telling you, I didn't do anything wrong. Well, then why did you tell it from his perspective? It doesn't make any sense. I would much rather it be the perspective of one of his parents, maybe a close friend, maybe a wife, someone. But, like, if you don't want it to be Elvis' perspective, fine. But, like, the fact that they made it Tom Hanks, and then Tom Hanks is such a repulsive character throughout the movie, by the end of the movie, you're like, why did I hear your side of the story the whole time? It didn't make any sense. So number 9, Elvis, music biopics, always disappoint. At number 8, guys, is going to be the first very controversial one on this list, and that is Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. I don't need 15 minutes of two rocks staring at each other with subtitles on a screen. I don't need that. I don't need the hot dog finger world of this movie. It was disgusting. I hated it. There are aspects of this movie that I like, and there are some moments in this movie that I really enjoy. But overall, completely honest with you guys, Everything Everywhere All at Once was a fantastic waste of my fucking time. I just disliked it. I didn't get the emotional beats that other people said that they got. And sometimes I wonder if people actually get those emotional beats with these movies, because I see them and I'm like, okay, are you just saying that because you want people to watch your channel? And you like, I don't care. Like, I love talking about movies, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to give you a dishonest review of something. So if something didn't touch me in a certain way or something didn't make me feel a certain way, I'm not going to pretend that. And Everything Everywhere All at Once just didn't do that for me. It was a movie that I thought was pretentious, and it was boring, and ultimately a movie I'll never watch again. So Everything Everywhere All at Once, number 8. As we're talking about controversial things, guys, at number 7, we got to talk about Morbius. Now, the only controversial thing about this movie is why is it not higher on my list? It's at number 7 because there are aspects that I did genuinely enjoy. But for the most part, this was a huge misstep by Sony and a huge waste of time by Sony. Like, Sony put together this movie, they even delayed it 3 months. And when they did that, I was like, oh my God, they're adding Andrew Garfield. Like, they're going to add Spider-Man stuff. Because Spider-Man No Way Home did such a good job that they're going to add in stuff to this movie that's going to connect. And they kind of do in the end credits, but it doesn't fucking matter. This movie was awful. And Jared Leto as Morbius, look, I like Jared Leto a lot. I think he's a great actor, and I would like to see him in more. But Jared Leto as Morbius just didn't work for me. And then the plot of the villain being his best friend that turned evil, like, it was just such a generic plot. And I think I gave this a favorable review back in the day. I was like, oh, okay, no, not bad. We'll see how 2022 shapes out. No, No, I was wrong. This movie was awful. And there were, like I said, there were some technical things I liked. Like, I liked when they flew in the air and, like, the purple trail or whatever color clothing they were wearing, like, trailed off of them. That was kind of cool. That's it. That's it. After that, nothing else was cool in this movie. It's a vampire movie that they didn't have the balls to rate R and make it awesome. Like, they didn't even show vampires sucking blood. There wasn't like blood splattered faces. They could have gone all out with this movie. Instead, they played it safe to try and make more money, and it cost them. So Morbius, number 7. At number 6 is a Netflix release horror movie, Texas Chainsaw. It is a follow-up to the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. The thing with horror movies is it's easy to put them on your worst of list, because I feel like horror movies need to reach a certain expectation. But if they try too hard or they don't try enough, they're bad. So it's easy to throw horror movies on a worst of list, and I've got a few of them on this list. But I also have a lot of horror movies from 2022 on my best of list. And so I feel like 2022 was a great year for horror, but then you got just bombs like this. This movie is everything that a horror requel shouldn't be. If Scream 5 was everything a horror requel should be, where it's not a reboot, it's a continuation, but it's sort of a soft reboot. That's what this movie was trying to do, and it just failed miserably. I didn't like any of the characters in this movie. I didn't root for any of the characters in this movie. Then you've got Leatherface himself, who at one point digs his chainsaw out of a wall like he's John Wick looking for his suitcase. That's a plot point in this movie. I couldn't, when I watched this movie, I was like, are you kidding me? And then you've got the whole setup of this movie where you've got a town being taken over by these millennials, and they're going to make this their town. But there's one old woman that won't leave, so they got the cops to take her away, and she has a heart attack, and that triggers Leatherface to come back because it was his mom, and he kills everybody. There's one good scene in this movie on a bus. That's it. Coming into the top 5, guys, remember, we got to make a big deal about being in the top 5. That's what all YouTubers do. So at number 5, guys, we have another horror movie, and that is The Cursed. Now, The Cursed had a great opening act. I really liked how all these gypsies got slaughtered and put in buried, unmarked graves. Like, that was really cool, and it was a great setup for a very good horror movie. And then the movie was like, oh yeah, by the way, this is about werewolves. And I feel like had they marketed it about werewolves, maybe I would have been kinder to this movie because I would have known going into it. But based on the preview, there was no word of werewolves. And then it went from this cool movie about revenge, maybe, and like a curse based on all the things that these horrible people did to these gypsies, and then it just turned into the curse is actually a werewolf. And then the werewolf looked really unbelievable. And I remember leaving this theater, and I was like, well, it's a horror movie in February. What do I really expect? And that's fair. But I just can't let it go. I can't let go of the fact that they had a great opening act that was brutal, and then they just squandered it. They were just like, just werewolf it to the end of the movie. I felt like it was two cool ideas, and they put them together, and the wrong movie happened. The Cursed. All right, guys, at number 4, we get to a movie that I remember saying in my review of this movie, well, if this is on my worst of list, couldn't have been a bad year for movies. And it wasn't a bad year for movies. There were a lot of great movies, but this is on my worst of list, so I gotta eat those words now. Anyway, it's Moonfall. Moonfall is a movie about the moon crashing down to Earth, and then it turns out the moon is actually inhabited by aliens. It's hollow. There's some really cool ideas in there, all executed poorly by Roland Emmerich, which is crazy because the guy did The Day After Tomorrow, which is a great disaster movie. He also did Independence Day, which is a great disaster movie. And then he did The Patriot, which I love. I love that movie, top 10 for sure. But like, ultimately, Roland Emmerich dropped the ball with this one. The moon crashing to Earth. They had too many moon fights and then too many Earth cut scenes where, oh my God, what's going on with the people on Earth? Oh, what's going on with the moon? What's going on with people on Earth? And by the end of the movie, you're just like, I don't care about either. I wish they would just collide and end this movie for me in real life. And number 3, guys, is a movie that was on my most anticipated movies of the year list. This is the one I facepalmed on when I saw it. I was like, I can't believe I put this on my most anticipated list. And that is the movie Death on the Nile. It's an Agatha Christie book adaptation, and I had high hopes for it because I loved Murder on the Orient Express. That had Kenneth Branagh in it, had a whole different cast in it, and I had high hopes for that movie. And then when I got to Death on the Nile, I was like, oh my God, they misused Gal Gadot, they misused Kenneth Branagh, they had a whole plot line about the guy's mustache and why he wears it. They spent time in this movie going over why this guy wears a mustache. Not needed at all. And then you get to the plot of this movie, and I called it from the very opening scene. I was like, that's the murderer. I know it, and I was right. And I shouldn't be able to do that with a murder mystery. I've never read Agatha Christie. I shouldn't be able to do that. And then on top of all that, they've got a third movie in this franchise coming out next year called A Haunting in Venice. And it's like a haunting. Okay, it's up my alley. It's horror. But like, I don't anticipate it because this movie was so bad. It like killed future sequels anticipation. I'll go see it, but I'm not anticipating it. So Death on the Nile, number 3, it's a letdown. Now, the final 2 movies on this list are horror movies. Like I said, it's easy to put horror movies on these lists because I feel like there's a window for me personally, and that's what these lists are. They're my own personal list. The next movie I just reviewed recently, and that is Bones and All at number 2. Bones and All is just a waste of your time, but it's also, it tries to be so much more than it actually is. Like, it's a young adult romance movie centered around people that eat people. And it just doesn't work for me. Like, you're supposed to root for the people in a young adult romance movie. But instead, I couldn't find reason to root for these people. They were eating people. Like, there was no sympathy for me overall for any of these characters throughout the movie. And then they had this contrived plot line where like, oh, well, we gotta go find my mother. And then her hands are gone. Ah, she ate her hands. Oh, who cares? I don't care. And by the end of this movie, or what I thought was the end of this movie, I was like getting ready, got all my stuff. I was like, okay, this is where they're gonna end it. And they're like, no, there's 20 more minutes. And it was a horrible, horrible scene that I had to endure. Bones and All is garbage. It's an art house piece of shit, and I just hated it. And finally, guys, we got into the worst, my number 1 worst movie in 2022. I'll be completely honest with you guys. I hated this movie. I hated this movie, and I was kind of excited about this movie, like a little bit excited about this movie, and that is Terrifier 2. Now listen, there's an entire group of people on Twitter that absolutely love Terrifier 2, and if you say one negative thing about it, oh, they will come for you in droves, and they don't want to hear what you didn't like about it. What I didn't like about it was everything about this movie. So I went into detail in my review, so you could check that out if you want to hear like full detail. But I'll just say here that you don't need shit in your movie, and you don't need grotesque gore for the sake of grotesque gore. There's no rhyme or reason to the plot of this movie. It's just shit and guts. And that's disgusting. And that didn't belong on a big screen either. Like, I wish I had just watched this at home. My experience with this movie was watching people leave the theater in disgust. And people say, oh, well, that's how you know it's good, because people were leaving the theater. No, God damn it, no. People should want to watch the entire movie from beginning to end. Now, I stuck it out. I watched the whole thing. But God damn it, if I watched that movie, I was like, that is the worst fucking movie I've seen in the last 10 years, let alone the last year. And Terrifier 1, I didn't hate, you know. Yeah, as far as the acting goes in this movie, I like the guy that plays Art the Clown. I do. He's got a funny moment with some glasses in a shop that worked for me. But overall, ultimately, I hated the effects of this movie. I saw the director on Twitter and the producer talking about, we're going to nominate this for the Oscars because of effects. Effects? You mean the worst looking gore scene I've ever seen in my entire life, where this girl has all of the skin taken off her body and she's sitting there on a bed going, Mom, what? That exists, and it's a horrible scene. It is a horrible scene. I get that there are people that seek these kind of movies out. I don't want to know those people. That's kind of where I'm at. Like, I will not be participating in any more Terrifier movies going forward. I fucking hate this movie. It's a reason for not going to the theater. Like, that's terrible. I hated this movie. But listen, that's my list. Those are the movies I hated this year. I just couldn't stand them. Halfway through most of these movies, I wanted to leave the theater, but I didn't. I stuck it out so I could do a full review, give you my honest opinions, and that's what you're going to get on my channel. You're going to get honest opinions. So you can be upset with my list if you want. Just remember one very important detail: I do not give a fuck. So you can put your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let me know why my list is wrong and why some of these movies are works of art and why they're great. I just don't care. I just wanted to get my thoughts out to you guys. You could put your thoughts down there. You're not going to sway me. This list is locked. These are the worst movies of 2022. If you like this video, guys, hit the like button. If you want to share this video with your friends, make sure you do that by hitting the share button. If you have seen these movies, let me know your thoughts about them. And finally, guys, if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do that by hitting the subscribe button. 2023 is up next, and I have my most anticipated movies of 2023 dropping on New Year's Day, so watch out for that. Thanks for watching, and oh yeah, Merry fucking Christmas.